What if I told you that one of the most surprising alliances in 2025 isn't between superpowers like the United States and China, or NATO's usual heavyweights, but between two countries most people rarely hear mentioned in the same sentence, Canada and Sweden? At first glance, it sounds almost random, right? A North American middle power and a Scandinavian innovation hub. But stay with me, because what's happening right now could quietly reshape global defense, trade, and even the digital future of the Arctic. And if Washington isn't careful, it might find itself sidelined in a partnership it never saw coming. So here's my question to you: why would Canada, a country deeply integrated with US defense supply chains and NATO strategies, suddenly look to Sweden, a new NATO entrant, for something as critical as fighter jets, Arctic mapping, and next-gen digital infrastructure? And what does Sweden gain by hitching itself to Ottawa, instead of focusing fully on its European neighbors? The answer lies in a fascinating mix of strategy, economics, and quiet defiance of old dependencies. Think about this: in early 2025, Canada entered advanced talks with Sweden about diversifying its defense procurement strategy. Canada already operates US-built F-35 fighter jets. Those are some of the most advanced planes in the world. But instead of doubling down on American equipment, Ottawa is seriously considering something else: the Swedish Saab Gripen, a multi-role aircraft known for cost efficiency, adaptability, and most importantly, flexible production partnerships. Unlike American defense giants, Sweden's Saab isn't just offering planes. It's offering Canada something far more valuable: the chance to assemble them locally, create thousands of jobs, and loosen the iron grip of US defense contractors. Why is that so important? Because Canada has been burned before. Past procurement programs with the US have suffered massive delays and cost overruns. Washington's defense supply chain might be powerful, but it's also bureaucratic and heavily politicized. Canada wants agility, cost control, and sovereignty in its defense choices. And Sweden, small, nimble, and innovative, is delivering exactly that. Now ask yourself, what does Sweden get out of this? For Stockholm, Canada represents a golden ticket into the North American defense market. Without going through the US, think about how radical that is. For decades, access to North America in defense meant working through Washington. Sweden is bypassing that and cutting a direct line into Ottawa. And at the same time, Canada is sending a subtle but powerful message: it doesn't have to depend on US suppliers to modernize its military. And here's the twist: this isn't happening in a vacuum. Sweden just joined NATO in 2023. And one of its very first moves, as a NATO member, was to integrate directly into a Canadian-led mission, the Multinational Brigade in Latvia. Canada has led that brigade since day one, but Sweden's involvement brings a fresh layer of capabilities, especially in coastal defense, surveillance, and cold weather operations. Now think about the optics of that. While Washington keeps one eye on Europe and the other on the Indo-Pacific, Canada is out here forging deep ties with Sweden in NATO's Eastern Front. It's more than symbolic. It's about resilience. Canada gets access to Swedish expertise in advanced sensors, Arctic-capable vehicles, and communication systems. Sweden gets operational credibility in NATO through Canada. And together, they show that smaller, technologically advanced allies can lead within NATO, without waiting for the US. But let's pivot north for a second. Because this is where things get really interesting. In July 2025, the Swedish icebreaker Odin and Canada's Coast Guard ship Louis S. St. Laurent embarked on a joint Arctic expedition. At first glance, it looks like science. Mapping the Arctic seabed. But here's the real story: they are scouting potential routes for undersea data cables that could link North America to Europe through the Arctic. Let that sink in. Whoever controls the cables, controls the flow of digital information. And right now, Sweden and Canada are laying the groundwork for a high-speed trans-Arctic internet highway that bypasses traditional routes through the US and Southern Europe. Lower latency. Faster finance transactions. Strategic data sovereignty. This is the definition of soft power wrapped in cold, icy seas. Why does this matter? Because if successful, Canada becomes a digital bridge between Europe and North America. Sweden, with its ice navigation and mapping expertise, gets a central role in the most strategic frontier of the 21st century, the Arctic. Together, they are not just conducting research. They are shaping the future of global connectivity. And Washington? It's watching from the sidelines, unable to fully control a route that cuts it out of the equation. Now, here's where it gets even deeper. You might think this is just defense and cables. But look at the numbers. In 2025, nearly 80% of Swedish companies operating in Canada reported profitability. Over half plan to expand in the next year. Why? Because Canada isn't just a stable economy, it's also a gateway to North America under the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA. That means Swedish firms get tariff-free access and simplified regulation when operating in Canada, a major advantage they don't always enjoy when competing in US markets. Think about Ericsson, the Swedish telecom giant. It already holds a leading role in Canada's 5G rollout. That means everything from autonomous vehicles to smart cities in Canada is being powered by Swedish infrastructure. Meanwhile, Canadian mining companies are feeding Sweden's industrial supply chains with critical minerals, nickel, cobalt, and more, used in everything from EV batteries to wind turbines. This isn't just trade. It's deep integration. Sweden invests in Canada's 5G and clean tech. Canada exports high-grade minerals and aerospace components to Sweden. Both countries are climbing the value chain, moving away from commodities toward strategic, high-value innovation. This is what economists call a win-win industrial alignment. But here's the kicker. All of this is happening under CETA, a deal that gives Canada the flexibility to deepen ties with individual EU member states while maintaining a broader European relationship. That's powerful. Ottawa can tailor its partnerships, working with Sweden on green tech and advanced manufacturing while aligning with other EU states on different sectors. It's like diversifying your portfolio. And the Arctic? That's not going away. Climate change is opening up new routes, new resources, and new competition. Russia is building bases, the US is investing in icebreakers, and China is calling itself a near-Arctic state. But in this crowded race, Canada and Sweden are carving out a niche based on sustainability, science, and smart technology. So here's a question for you. Is this just a quiet partnership between two like-minded mid-sized nations? Or is it a blueprint for how smaller innovation-driven economies can punch above their weight in a multipolar world? Because when you connect the dots, from fighter jet production to Arctic internet cables to clean technology integration, the Canada-Sweden story looks less like a one-off and more like a model for 21st century alliances. And if that's the case, what happens if other countries follow suit? Imagine Canada replicating this model with Finland, or with Indo-Pacific partners like South Korea. Imagine Sweden using Canada as a launchpad for North American influence, while Canada uses Sweden as a gateway to European decision-making. Suddenly, Washington isn't the only gravitational pull in transatlantic relations. And that's the real story here. The US isn't being replaced. But it is being bypassed, just enough to remind everyone that even America's closest allies have options. So, do you think Canada is simply diversifying its strategy, hedging against risk in defense and trade? Or is this the start of a deeper realignment, a clean tech and Arctic-focused partnership that permanently shifts how global alliances are built? Drop your thoughts below, because this debate is only getting started. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the hidden forces shaping global wealth and power. And here's a challenge for you. Share this video with one friend who still thinks Canada and Sweden are secondary players in global politics. Let them see how wrong that assumption is. Because as we've just uncovered, the strategies being built today are the ones that will define the next decade. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.